Like, comment, and subscribe.
The Tale of Two Oxen by Munshi Premchand. In a quiet village nestled between sun-drenched fields and mango groves lived Jodi, a poor but content farmer. His home was simple, made of mud walls and a thatched roof, but it echoed with honesty, laughter, and devotion to the land. Jodi was not wealthy in possessions, but rich in spirit. His most cherished companions were not people, but two oxen, Heera and Moti. These were not just animals tied to a yoke, they were his family. Heera was dark, calm, and mature, a thinker in his own way. Moti was light-colored, younger, restless, and spirited. Where Heera was wisdom, Moti was fire. But together, they formed a perfect balance. For years, they had tilled the land, drawn water, pulled carts, and stood beside Jodi in drought and rain. Each morning, Jodi would pat their foreheads and speak to them lovingly. He'd say, "Let's earn today's bread, brothers," and they would nod, tails flicking in acknowledgement. After a hard day's work, Jodi would feed them with his own hands, mixing oil cake with straw as if preparing a feast. They responded with affection, rubbing their faces against his arms. Life, though hard, had its rhythm, until misfortune knocked. One year, the rains delayed. Then they didn't come at all. The fields cracked, the crops withered, and the granaries remained empty. Jodi took loans to buy seeds, then to feed his family, and then simply to survive. The zamindar, landlord, who once offered smiles, now sent collectors with threats. "Pay up," they said, "or lose your cattle." Jodi tried everything. He cut down firewood, worked as a laborer, even skipped meals. But the debt grew like a creeping vine until one day the landlord arrived with two men and a rope. "They'll fetch a good price," the landlord said coldly, pointing at Heera and Moti. Jodi's heart shattered. He fell at their feet, weeping. "They are my only family," he begged. But the landlord had no mercy. With trembling hands, Jodi untied the oxen. He hugged them tightly, whispering, "Forgive me, my sons. I have failed you." And with a final look, he watched as the men led them away. Heera looked back, eyes full of confusion. Moti resisted, digging his hooves into the earth. But they were pulled away, leaving Jodi crumpled in the dust, broken and alone. The oxen were sold to a merchant in a distant town. His name was Gokul, a greedy trader who cared little for animals. He lashed them at the slightest pause, overloaded his carts, and fed them barely enough to survive. Heera and Moti missed Jodi deeply. They worked without the warmth of a loving hand, without kind words, without dignity. Still, they endured, because that's what oxen do. One day, Gokul loaded their cart with sacks of salt, tied them tightly, and forced them to climb a narrow, hilly road. The straps dug into their shoulders, and the load tilted dangerously. Moti stumbled. The cart lurched. Gokul roared in anger and raised his whip, but before it struck, Moti reared up and broke free. Heera followed instinctively. Together they ran, off the road, across the fields, leaping over ditches, dodging startled villagers. Gokul shouted behind them, but the wind drowned him out. They didn't know where they were going. They just knew they had to run. After hours of running, they entered a thick forest. It was wild, untamed, full of sounds and shadows. But to them, it was freedom. For days, they grazed on tall grasses, drank from brooks, and rested under banyan trees. They felt peace they hadn't known since their village days. Birds sang above them. Wild deer passed by. There were no yokes, no whips, only sky, earth, and silence. But nature has dangers too. One evening, Moti strayed near a banana grove and fell into a hunter's trap, a deep pit camouflaged by leaves. Heera heard his cries and rushed to the edge. Couldn't help. Moti looked up at him, afraid but still proud. Hunters arrived, tied him with ropes, and took him away. Heera waited for days, but Moti never returned. Back in the village, Jodi's home had grown silent. The space beside the haystack where Heera and Moti once lay was now bare. He still left food out, still checked the path every morning. "They'll come back," he told himself, but doubt gnawed at him. Then one stormy night, when thunder cracked and trees bent under the wind, a familiar bellow pierced the storm. Jodi opened the door, and there stood Heera, trembling, wounded, but alive. He rushed forward, embracing him like a lost son. He wept. "You came back. You remembered me." Heera lowered his head into Jodi's arms. That night, for the first time in weeks, Jodi smiled. But Moti was still missing. Weeks passed. Heera refused to work alone. He stared into the distance, waiting. Then one day, a traveling merchant's cart entered the village. It was drawn by 4 oxen. One of them was thin, bruised, but unmistakably Moti. Heera recognized him instantly. With a loud cry, he ran toward him. Moti stopped, turned, and let out a low, thunderous bellow. In an instant, he broke the ropes and galloped toward Heera. Villagers gathered as the 2 oxen rubbed heads, circling each other in joy. The merchant screamed, "That's my ox. He belongs to me." Jodi arrived, head stunned. "This is my Moti," he said quietly. The crowd sided with Jodi. "These 2 are brothers," an elder said. "They've crossed forests to reunite. You can't separate them again." Shamed and silenced, the merchant backed down. Heera and Moti were home. Their bodies bore scars, but their spirits were unbroken. They never worked as hard again, but they worked enough. In the evenings, they lay beside each other, gazing at the stars. Jodi would sit nearby, telling them stories of brave animals, sharing his thoughts, just as before. They were not just oxen. They were survivors, heroes of their own story. And in that small, dusty village, they became a legend, a tale told from grandfather to child about love, loyalty, and the unbreakable bond of friendship.